This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by DigitalOcean and by Ting. Go to last.ting.com and save $25 off your first device or your first month of service. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 316. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
Hey, Matt, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Are you ready for me to tell folks about the epic show today?
I am.
All right, well, coming up on this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, you might be a little bit like me. You want to have your cake and eat it too. We're going to introduce you to Bedrock Linux. Now, get this, Matt. This is what it is. Bedrock Linux is a distribution created with the aim of making the most and often what seem to be mutually exclusive benefits of various Linux distributions available simultaneously and transparently in one distribution.
Ooh.
So I'll give you an example. Say, maybe you like yourself some Debian stable, but every now and then you look over there at that Arch user repository and you go, oh man, I'd love to have those Arch packages. And now you can have both. We're going to take a look at Bedrock Linux in a two-part episode. We'll start with our first analysis in today's episode of the Linux Action Show, and then on Tuesday on Linux Unplugged, the developer of Bedrock Linux will join us to get into some of the technical details. So I invite you to join us in our virtual lug on Tuesday to ask any questions, and I think you'll have some after this week's episode. Also, of course, we've got the news. There's supposedly a new Heartbleed 2.0 affecting Linux boxes, some Chrome news, as well as a few other stories. And then we've got a great feedback section. We're going to round up some upcoming Linux Fest, and we got some swag giveaways that will, well, I guess you could call it swag. It's probably the coolest swag we've ever given away.
I would say so.
So if you're going to be going to one of these Linux Fest coming up, stay tuned for that. And of course, Matt, not only do we have our picks, but we have some announcements too. So why don't we get started?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, our Runs Linux pick this week is the Opie.
The Opie.
Opie is a tiny box designed to keep your private information private. Think of like Dropbox and OwnCloud all in one package, Matt. And it's on Indiegogo right now and is powered by Ubuntu 14.04.
Hi, my name is Tor Krill, and this is my colleague Per Nilsson. Together we run our company Open Products.
Our goal is to change the way personal information is handled on the internet today.
In my day-to-day life, I use a computer for work, and I have smartphones and tablets to communicate with the world. But looking at it, information that used to be stored on paper, let it be my address book or my calendar, this information is now stored in the cloud.
Cloud services are great in many ways, but unfortunately, there are also some dark clouds on the horizon. First, free is never for free. You always pay with your personal information in some way. Secondly, who reads your email, your calendar, or peeks into your family album? Well, maybe no one. But information on who has access to your information is very hard to come about, and there are plenty of evidence that you're not the only one having access to it.
What do you do when something happens? What do you do if you're getting locked out from your account? What do you do if you find out that someone has gained access to your personal information or have hijacked your account? We feel that the way personal information is handled today is totally unacceptable.
I want to take control of my digital life. I want to know where my information is located and who has access to it. And I want to make sure that my digital life is here today and tomorrow, no matter what happens.
We believe that the best solution to this problem is to provide physical access to the device, and secondly, have a remote, secure backup guaranteeing your data tomorrow.
It's pretty sweet looking, huh?
That's really nice.
Shortly,
Very
I
low
want
profile.
to say connected and protected.
Our solution is called Open Products Information Hub, or OP for short. You should be able to live your digital life as you used to. You should not have to change.
OP handles your emails, your contacts, your calendars, and your personal files and photos. OP makes sure that you can access these services on your desktop, on your tablet, on your smartphone, or in your web browser. OP makes sure that your information is available tomorrow as well by providing backups today. OP is developed with security and low maintenance in mind. Just plug it into your network and complete the short installation.
So you've probably guessed by now, because they're using Ubuntu, you probably have a guess of what some of the components are here in this thing. So why don't we start with the storage. It's a micro SD card, and they're using Lux encryption on that micro SD card, so that way the data that's, even if somebody were to physically take the box, you'd be protected.
I like that.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's really smart. And like, for example, the calendars and stuff like that, I think they're using OwnCloud. They have it all listed here on their Indiegogo page. And then
Sounds fascinating.
LinuxGizmos.com, Eric Brown over at LinuxGizmos.com did a good write-up on it, and he talks about the OP device. It's got, let's see, it's It has 8 days left. They've reached their goal of $7,400 in funding out of $10,000. Now they already have manufactured the devices, so some of these funding levels actually get you a box.
Oh,
an 8 gig box,
hey.
but yeah, nonetheless. And you could add your own SD card of larger size. So there's a picture of the box sort of opened up a little bit. It runs Ubuntu 14.04 on a Texas Instruments AM3352 Sierra system on a chip, 1 gigahertz Cortex A8. It has 512 megabytes of DDR RAM, 2 gigabytes of onboard flash, and then you can use your own SD card for external storage. Like I mentioned, it's using Lux encryption in conjunction with AES. Other stack components built upon mostly unmodified Linux kernel, including the Nginx web server, the Dovecot IMAP server, the Roundcube webmail client, which is awesome, and OP uses OwnCloud for contacts, calendar, and file sync web dev access, and it uses S3QL for backup, and they encrypt that, and they include a backup service with it, and it also uses a DNS service as well if you need it.
Sounds fascinating.
Starting at $119.
That's actually really reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, considering what you get, I mean, because everybody's like, I don't want to spend $100 until you lose all your stuff or you get locked out of an account. All of a sudden, you're thinking, oh my God, I really could have done without cable that month.
Have you heard of the file? Have you heard of the file transporter?
No.
It looks like a pretty good product too. It's essentially, these are all like Dropbox competitors. You know, you get this little hockey puck,
right.
You hook it up to a USB thumb drive, and it gives you everything Dropbox does, except for instead of using their cloud service, it's it's on your own drives. This is the OP is similar to that, only it's powered by Linux and it's much cheaper, and it's using an open source stack, which I prefer a lot more. And these guys, they seem to have a pretty good background in this too. I don't normally feature these crowdfunding ones up top, and I usually wait till they've actually produced something. However, reading these guys, they seem to, not only do they already have the box built, and the software stack makes total sense, but they seem to actually have some experience in the field. So anyways, it's called the OPI, that's OPI, and it's essentially a Dropbox, OwnCloud, email server, contact sync. It's a way to stop using cloud services, powered all by Linux.
Go get one. You don't have to do the work. Let them do it. Buy it. Support them. Make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. And you could, honestly, build a lot of that on your own home server. We've talked about that before. We'll talk about that more in the future. But the fun thing about this is, A, if you don't have a lot of time, it's, you just set it up and forget it. But B, you could easily give this to like a family member.
Oh, yeah. Big time, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
or it'd be great for a small business with maybe, a dozen office employees, something like that, too.
I can think of a few small businesses that would definitely benefit from it.
Hey, Matt, before we get to our next picks, I want to thank our sponsor this week, and that is DigitalOcean. Woo! Woo! DigitalOcean is simple cloud hosting. And let me tell you something. We got a great deal right now. If you use the promo code LASTJune, you're going to get a $10 credit over at DigitalOcean. You can try out that $5 rig for 2 months. If you're not familiar with DigitalOcean, let me tell you a little bit about them. DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud server. And users can get created anywhere between, about 40 seconds, maybe 37 seconds if you're a baller. On average, it's about 55 seconds. And pricing plans start around $5 per month. The rig that I use, and I have been for a while now, is $5. And the reason why I get away with a $5 machine is really because DigitalOcean has an extremely good value proposition right here. Check this out. For $5, I got 512 megabytes of RAM. Well, guess what? A Linux server is awesome at managing RAM. So 512 megabytes of RAM, you could be surprised how far you get with that. 20 gigabyte SSD. Well, guess what? An SSD means I don't need an entire RAID array for high I/O performance. I can get a lot higher density with 20 gigabytes. And on a server, again, 20 gigs is a ton of storage. Plus, I get one fast CPU and a terabyte of transfer. A terabyte of transfer means I never worry about going over my bandwidth bill in a single month. And DigitalOcean has data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, and Amsterdam. But the best part is their interface. It's simple. It's intuitive. This control panel is awesome. Empower users can replicate it on a larger scale on their own using the straightforward API. And we're seeing some really good examples of that too. And it makes it, I'm showing you a demonstration of it right now on the video version. This isn't even like a fake, this is really what the UI looks like.
I mean, it's insane.
It's amazing.
Yeah, just point, click, next, point.
The power to deploy KVM-powered virtual containers on an SSD system with Tier 1 bandwidth all over the world, in data centers you choose, with backups and DNS management and snapshots and templating. In this interface, as an old sysadmin, this blows my face off. This blows my face off every time I look at it. I cannot believe it. And you can try it for 2 months for free when you use the promo code LASTJune. That's going to get you a $10 credit. Well, guess what? That $5 rig means you can try it for 2 months for free. Or maybe you're a baller and you want to get the big dog. $10 a month, try it for free. And the pricing plans they're structured in a way that just makes so much sense. And remember how I mentioned you could do a template?
Yeah.
Well, imagine just having a machine ready to go when you needed to do some testing, and then you just take advantage of DigitalOcean's hourly pricing. You can deploy a droplet using their templating system in seconds, get up and running, do what you need to do, and just use the hourly billing and shut it down. If you use our promo code last June, that will last you a very long time. A very long time. It's incredible. So go over to DigitalOcean.com, check them out, see why they rock so dang hard, and use our promo code last June when you check out to get that $10 credit. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show.
Nice. I love the fact they offer hourly pricing. It's so nice for testing because a lot of times you don't necessarily want to make that big commitment.
No, and when you can turn a machine on and off and you can deploy it, and it just makes so much sense.
Brilliant.
So I'm rocking KDE this week.
Yes.
I'll get to that more probably towards the end of the show. And I got a fresh KDE install, and you know me, Matt. When I go KDE, I go QT. I'm a QT guy. Get that GT. You know what I? Hey Matt. You know what
no
I?
GTK
Do you know
for
what?
you.
Do you know what I say to GTK?
Get it out of here.
That's what I say to GTK. So I'm trying out Otter Browser. This is my desktop pick this week. Otter Browser, OTTER. Otter Browser is our project aiming at recreating the classic Opera 12 UI. In Qt5.
Oh, that's interesting.
In Qt5, Matt.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
If you would, sir, let me show it to you. Here it is. This is a Qt5 powered Otter browser. It uses, because Opera's, I believe, now using WebKit on the back, and I think it's still using that. It's actually, it's surprisingly far along and also quite stable. It does have some issues.
Okay.
But here, let's go to
Seems
to Linux.
like it's pretty responsive.
Let's go to Linux Action Show or linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Now, of course, Reddit's not always the fastest site in the world, but you can see down here you'll get loading stats.
That went pretty quick.
It's for a Qt, it's a really good Qt-based browser. Like if you're looking, Chrome is now in Aurora. Of course, you've got Conqueror, and there's some other browsers for KDE, but like Firefox is GTK, and it just feels like GTK on KDE. But Otter, man, Otter is like this feels like I'm at home. And what's great is like if I go over here to say like I want to do a file open, it. Oh, well, I was going to say last. Oh, this is the Qt5 file open dialog box. Yeah. So it's it feels like it's part of the there's a bit of a transition, I suppose, because it's a little bit newer version. And by the way, I'm using the KDE Next theme on my machine here. So I don't know if you've noticed my particular brand of fancy that I have today, but this is a work in progress Plasma Next theme.
I like I'm just looking at the browser's layout and menu. It feels very natural. It feels very classic Firefox, which I like.
Yes.
I prefer.
It's got your search box over here, and exactly.
Yeah, if I'm in a KDE space or just anything that's going to be in that kind of type of theming and atmosphere, I definitely feel like that this could be a winner.
And the thing is, I don't know how many people out there have tried out Opera, but there's some really nice aspects to the Opera web browser. And I know that's like kind of like a cliche thing to say these days because like who's using Opera?
Right.
But now that they're going to WebKit, and if you need a Qt browser and you want something that performs well, and you want something that's, like Matt saying, maybe a little more classical web browser UI.
Yeah.
Because not everybody loves it in Firefox.
Yeah, I prefer it.
So go check it out. It's Otter Browser. You can find it at otter-browser.org. It's probably in a repo near you. And if it's not, well, then maybe you should be running Bedrock Linux. We'll get to that in a little bit.
That's right. It's not web links.
It's not. No. Yeah. Have you ever used? Speaking of links, have you ever used links on the command line where you're doing like? Oh man.
I used to use when I was and I use this term loosely, building websites.
Yeah.
Very loosely. I used to actually kind of get an idea as to how everything was treated out, make sure everything was kind of doing what it needed to, and it serves a purpose.
Yeah, it's nice for testing too. Like I still will occasionally fire up links, links or lynx on the command line just to like check something. Like when sometimes when you install software on a Linux box that has a web management front end to it. A lot of times it's configured to only respond to localhost. Well, if I'm SSH'd in, it's like, I know I could go in the config, but I just want to make sure this is working, so I'll just go to links localhost, and it works for that kind of stuff.
Really good way to do it. One thing I'm really disappointed with links though is that they don't have ASCII YouTube viewing, because that would just be awesome. That would be, how cool would that be, right?
I would watch that for sure. Yeah. I don't know how SSH would handle it, but
it might be a little chunky. That's okay.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Well, so for the spotlight this week, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm being a little selfish this week. I don't normally do this. I try not to do this ever, but this is a huge week for Jupiter Broadcasting. This is maybe one of our biggest weeks ever. And so I wanted to tell you guys about it because I'm really excited. So I'll start with the first thing. We launched Tech Talk today, 4 episodes because it's Monday through Thursday, and it was a killer week. And Tech Talk today is a tech talk show that takes a look at the technology events in the world from an open source and Linux user's perspective. There's a lot of really good daily tech shows out there, and they have great formats. Like Tom Merritt does a daily tech news show, great show. He's also Patreon funded.
Yeah.
I don't mean to supplant that. This is a different kind of show. This is a little more casual. This is us kind of talking about what's going on from the perspective of Linux users, because I feel like that's massively underrepresented in the general technology coverage.
Badly. It's not represented at all, really.
Yeah.
And if it is, no one knows about it.
Right.
I mean, that's the problem.
And so here we are. We're going to do it Monday through Thursday. It's also an experiment to help finance the network. If you'd like to help contribute to the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, go over to patreon.com/today, where it's a combined effort to sort of fund the network via crowdfunding so we can keep a good sponsor, audience funding balance, but also provide you guys a little something. So that's Tech Talk Today. And next week, Chase will be joining me because we'll be covering E3. We'll at least have an E3. Some episodes might be heavily E3. Some might just talk about it. And then the week after that, Tech Talk Day will be covering Google I/O.
Oh, yes.
It's a busy month. So,
busy month.
Launching a daily show would be enough just on its own. That would be a big week over at Jupiter Broadcasting. And I would be really proud to sit here and tell you guys that we launched a new daily tech talk show, and we're trying to roll out a new way to crowdfund the Jupiter Broadcasting Network so that way we can make investment in bold projects. I would be like, that's great, but I'm not done yet. We also launched episode 1 of How to Linux, switching to Linux. My buddy Chase joins the crew here at Jupiter Broadcasting, and we get him switched over to a Linux box. And this first episode, what we're doing is we're creating an arc. So episode 1, Chase kind of tackles installing Linux, figuring out how to get Linux installed, and writing like a USB thumb drive. Then we're going to solve some problems for him. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a series that people today and down the road they're looking to switch to Linux will find some fundamental episodes they can follow. After we get some of these basic things figured out and solved, we're going to start ramping up into crazier and crazier projects. The scope of this show is so huge. We're going to do on-location shooting. Oh, wow. We're going to have producers that work on. We do have producers that work on this show. We have done on-location shooting. We're going to have a whole range of things. I can't wait to do some Wi-Fi episodes with Matt, and we're going to have Chase once he really gets sort of his feet. Once he gets on his feet with Linux, we really want to give people sort of the good and bad about switching to Linux, and How to Linux is going to cover that. And then once we get that sort of achievement unlocked, if you will, we're going to jump into some crazy projects that we've been planning for a long, long time, and the show's going to go into a whole nother gear. We also could use your support for that show. So go over to Jupiter Broadcasting, check out How to Linux, and spread it around. It helps people. It really is. Chase is a longtime Windows user moving to Linux, and it's really interesting to watch that happen and to see the things he's been running it for a little over a week since we shot this episode. Nice. And he's already ran into problems that I just didn't really think about.
Yeah, you get so used to being like, well, I'll just go do this.
So it's really great because I feel like we're going to be able to offer a new, fresh perspective on switching to Linux. We'll help people identify those bumps along the road. And then once we get that stuff ironed out, you're going to see what the awesome crap you can do with Linux and how great it is and how it really is freeing. So go check it out. We're just getting started. You can follow us as we go. Episode 1 of How to Linux has finally aired. The month of June is big. 2 new shows over at Jupiter Broadcasting for you guys to go check out. And we'd love your support on any of those if you can afford. If you get some value from those shows, we'd love to have you help us out. But I'm not going to leave you guys with just selfish stuff. I also have a quick pick that came in from the audience. And since I'm on KDE this week, I thought I'd give the GNOME guys a little love. Minimum workspaces. It solves a problem I've had with GNOME for a long time. GNOME 3 introduced the philosophy of dynamically created workspaces. A new workspace is generated when you need it, and you move the application to that. That's good and all, except for I like to have my chat room on Workspace 3, my web browser on Workspace 1. Like I have a flow, right?
Right. Yeah.
Minimum workspaces is an extension for GNOME that will establish a minimum fixed set of workspaces. So I have it set to 4. And then when you go beyond that, it will allow GNOME 3 to dynamically generate more workspaces as you need them. So it's a little bit of static, it's a little bit of dynamic workspaces. It's super cool. It's called Minimum Workspaces, and we have it linked in the show notes. If you're a GNOME user and you've kind of still been struggling to grok that whole dynamic workspaces thing, I know that's the thing I'm still hung up on the most. This solved it for me.
Nice.
So go check it out. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. There you go.
There it is.
A little something for everybody this week, Matt.
That new show, I expect to see robots, lasers, and Star Trek.
All powered by a Raspberry Pi. All right, Matt, let's do the news.
Hey, That's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com, Matt. Ting is mobile that makes sense. Go to last.ting.com. Ting is my mobile service provider and Matt's mobile service provider, and I'll tell you why. They rock, because guess what? No contracts, and you only pay for what you use.
What?
You only pay for what you use. It's a flat $6 per month, and then just your usage on top of that. Of course, any taxes the man's got to take. Right, Matt?
That's right. They're going to do it. They're going to do it.
So let me tell you a little bit about them. One of the things that I think is really unique about Ting is no-hold customer service. You call them anytime between 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. on a business day. I mean, they're not animals. You call them on a business day. Don't be a jerk. And guess what? A real Canadian answers the phone and they solve your freaking problems because these people are empowered to help you because they know what the hell they're talking about. And get this one. They're Android enthusiasts. What a concept. The support people actually like to use the devices you're calling in about. They got people on all kinds of phones over there, and they're cool people, too. They got them on their blog. And not only that, but Ting has a bunch of really great devices. I'll tell you about a couple in a second. And then they wrap it all up with this smaxy control panel that is unbelievably easy to use, incredibly powerful, and matched with iOS and Android apps. You can manage your account, get alerts, set names, set call forwarding options, voicemail, all that shenanigans. And then whenever you get stuck, you also know they have their online support at help.ting.com. So on the pre-show, Matt, we were taking averages from the chat room. And it was some crazy numbers being thrown out there because one of the things you find when you go to last.ting.com is they have a savings calculator on the Ting website.
Very helpful.
And plug in your actual usage. Remember this because...
Not your plan.
No,
not this thing you're paying for.
That's the scam.
Yeah,
that's the scam. Is they're hoping you're paying for stuff you're not even using. They're trying to sell you on something that they end up making.
Here's 5,000 minutes for $1 billion or whatever the hell it is. Could throw that out.
No, so go over to Ting and plug in what you actually use. So we did 100 minutes used, 100 text messages, 400 megabytes, and $145. Now these are actual what they used, and you would adjust these to whatever you want. So maybe if you use, let's say maybe you use 200 minutes a month.
And this is an example of their existing bill with their existing carrier.
Right, and you can put in how many devices you might have. You can even select your current provider if you want to get it more accurate. This since I'm just doing a general, I'm leaving it provider free. Click Calculate Savings on the Ting website and get ready for this. Boom! In 2 years,
holy cow,
the chat room on average would save $2,760 by switching to Ting.
That's like a Leopard Extreme right there.
You could buy a machine with that money, and you can see why it also makes sense to buy your device outright. And Ting has a bunch of really great devices, from data-only devices like the Netgear Zing. You buy this when you go to last.ting.com, $139, and then it's just a $6 hotspot. And your usage on top of that. Right? So if you got it sitting around or you need to use it, you don't have to worry about it. It's LTE. It's got that nice OLED screen on there so you can see what's up. And then look at this, Matt. My beloved, wonderful HTC One M7, $380 from Ting's partner Glide.
You know, that hotspot would be just the ticket for camping.
Oh, dude.
I'm telling you, right?
Anywhere.
Right?
Anywhere. Put it in your bag. Just put it in your bag. Because,
well, you got to rough it, so.
Yeah, man. You got to rough it and watch YouTube.
That's right.
You're out. You got to go watch the YouTube video to learn how to make a campfire.
That's exactly. It's like you're all cold and shivering. You're all like, I'm getting warmth from the screen.
It's like, okay, all right. So I'd go like this with the stick. Anyways, there's all kinds of great devices, including the Nexus 5, which I wholly recommend, and a bunch of brand new like the Samsung Galaxy S5 and the HTC One M8 as well. And then you put that on a Ting plan, and you're only paying for your usage. You're not locked into a contract, and you own your device outright.
Nice.
And then at the end of the day, you've got that wicked control panel to keep things in shape. It makes so much sense. And the thing is like it's finally putting your money where your mouth is, because this is a company that's doing it right, that's trying to make these big carriers change their behavior. And you want to vote for that. You want to vote for that underdog. You want to help them shape up the industry, and you can do that by going to last.ting.com. You'll take $25 off your first device at last.ting.com. If you've got a Ting-compatible device, they got a BYOD page, they'll take $25 off
I got a
your
great
service.
use case scenario. You have a nephew, doesn't use squat for minutes, so minutes are wasted there.
Yeah.
And then you got to say, all right, this month he's been using a lot of data. That's cool. We can adapt for that. It takes care of you. Not so much on the text messaging, then maybe the next month it reverses. Talk time. I love the fact that it self-adjusts from month to month. It's just so awesome.
I know, because some months, like, I'm using the phone a ton, and some months I'm not using it at all. And I'm always using data, so it's a great deal for me. All right, Matt, are you scared? Are you freaked out?
I am freaked the hell out.
Heartbleed 2.0, everybody. Panic, panic, panic. Actually,
Danger, Will Robinson.
Props to Michael over at Phoronix. I think he's one of the few publications that didn't manage to put this in a headline that sounded like our world was coming to an end.
Nice.
But there are a new round of open SSL vulnerabilities that are actually pretty serious that you do need to patch for, and that's why we're putting it right here at the top of the news. Also, GNU TLS. We'll talk about that in a second. So this is reminiscent of Heartbleed in a sense. However, these particular exploits require that you actually perform a man-in-the-middle attack. So you have to be between the two devices. They both devices have to be running OpenSSL, the same version on each end. Not a super common setup. A, web browsers don't generally directly implement OpenSSL, and B, you'd have to worry more about a man-in-the-middle. Whereas with Heartbleed, if you recall, Heartbleed was just that heartbeat packet, and you just had to be able to communicate with a server on the internet, and then you could eventually read the contents of its memory over a period of time.
And that was scary.
That is bad, because that didn't require man in the middle. These rounds do require man in the middle, so when people are labeling this as Heartbleed 2, they're basically pulling your chain to get you to click links.
It's more of an I think it's more of an opportunity exploit. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I mean, yes, it certainly has potential to be scary, but we're not quite there yet.
So we do have a handful out there. Here you can see a Heartbleed 2. Here's a headline of it. I liked Wired's too. Heartbleed Redux, another gaping wound in the web.
Coming Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. But even once you dig into the article here, they kind of fully admit that you do have to be be in the middle.
I like how they put it in the middle of the article too.
Yeah, it is literally in the middle of the article. The attack does have its limitations. They say it can only be used when both ends of the connection are running OpenSSL. Most browsers use SSL limitations that are not affected. So they even admit that it's not a huge deal, but it's definitely something you need to patch about. And also because I think there's just a lot more eyes on the code these days, another GNU TLS flaw was also found. The new flaw has been discovered in the GNU TLS cryptographic library. A lot of Linux distros use this in various places. It ships with several popular distros like Fedora uses it primarily too. According to the bug report, a malicious server could use this flaw to send an excessively long session ID value and trigger a buffer overflow connecting the TLS client using GNU TLS, causing it to crash or possibly execute code. And of course, the patch is out. That's how they don't even announce these anymore until the patch is ready. But it'll take time for all the distributions to package it up.
Of course. Of course, but you know it's important. You know it's going to get patched and it'll be resolved.
Yeah,
that's the important thing.
And there's no examples right now of either of these exploits being used in the wild. Whereas with Heartbleed, we started to see use cases immediately. And so Alan does a lot better job than I could in episode 165 of TechSnap. He rounds up all the vulnerabilities together, tells us where they rank and why they matter. And so if you're curious, go watch episode 165 of the TechSnap program. It's called House of Credit Cards. Also, he had a good story in there about going inside a carding operation online and how nuts that whole thing is. It's a great episode. So did you hear this last week was Reset the Net Day?
I've been hearing something about this.
We talked a little bit on Tech Talk today. It was like sort of to celebrate the anniversary of the Snowden leaks.
Right.
And the Free Software Foundation decided to use the opportunity to release a self-defense guide for email.
I like that.
And you know what I like about it?
The robot?
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, can't beat that. No, they put it in an infographic style too.
Oh, that's
Email selfdefense.fsf.org if you guys want to see this. And if you've been thinking about rolling your own email, they
Oh, this is great. It's like easy to digest. It's not all one big wall of text.
And they talk about how you set up a key pair, how you upload your keys to a public server. I mean, I think this is actually
It breaks it down nicely. It's got the great little graphics that actually, because I'm a very visual person, so reading it's one thing, but seeing how it actually is going to happen, even just in a playful sense, is very helpful for me.
Yeah,
and I like that.
It takes a topic that I think a lot of people, like Glenn Greenwald, who has been publishing the Snowden leaks, he admitted that he blew Snowden off for months because he was too overwhelmed by the complexity of setting up encryption that Snowden eventually ended up going out and finding somebody else because he couldn't get through to Greenwald because Greenwald couldn't be bothered. And he even fully admits this himself in his latest book. He's like, I looked at that process and I thought that's way too complicated. He almost blew the biggest story of our lifetimes because he was too overwhelmed by the process. So to break it out into a series of steps like this with graphics, it's not just a good thing to do. This is genuinely a good public service for the entire internet and for society. I mean, it literally is a public service for society as a whole.
Oh, definitely. And I love the fact that it's not, instead of it being dismissive, which our community has the Linux community as a whole, it tends to be very dismissive. If someone says something's hard, it's like, oh, I'll go read the manual. I like the fact that instead of that happening, there's actually an easy to digest guide that almost anybody can use.
Yeah, it's not an RTFM attitude. It's like, okay, well, here's the basic steps, and by the way, it's only going to be 5 total steps to do this, or 6, whatever it is. Yep. And it helps explain things in clear English too. So guys, go over there. We'll have it linked in the show notes. And see, that 6th step isn't even really a step. It's just kind of like, here's more information. And they give you like places to go find out to, push for political change.
Yeah, stay, keep up to date on the latest haps.
And the prisonbreak.org website, which lists a whole bunch of really great free tools and stuff. So, sometimes we have like, we kind of laugh at some stunts that the Free Software Foundation pulls off. This is one that I am totally on board.
I'm humbled and blown away. I am absolutely just astounded at how great this is.
It's really well done. It's really they really spent some time and probably some money on it too. That looked like it was designed by somebody who's got some skills. So check it out, guys. And if nothing else, bookmark it and then spread it around. So when folks are like grappling to get encryption set up, that you'll have that to help them. Now, Google wants to help them. Google is making an extension called end-to-end encryption to make encryption easier to use end-to-end. They say today we're adding this as an alpha version of a new tool. It's called end-to-end, and it's a Chrome extension intended for users who need additional security. While end-to-end encryption tools like PGP and GNU PGP have been around for a long time, they require a great deal of technical knowledge and know-how and effort to use.
Yes.
To help make this kind of encryption a bit easier, we're releasing the code for a new Chrome extension that uses OpenPGP, an open standard supported by many existing encryption tools. However, you won't find the end-to-end encryption extension in the Chrome Web Store quite yet. We're just sharing the code today so that the community can test it and evaluate it, helping us make sure that it's as secure as it needs to be before people start relying on it. And what I love about this, Matt, is Google's putting their money where their mouth is. They'll be honoring their vulnerability reward program and offer financial incentives for people who find bugs in end-to-end encryption extension.
Interesting. I mean, I think there is some little bit of irony in there with Google doing this just because they are kind of like big data collectors. But at the same time, if they're able to do this and stay agnostic about it and kind of accept the fact that some people do value their privacy, cool. I think that's great.
This also made me rack my brain like, well, wait a minute. I mean, Google's business model depends on being able to read my email to sell me ads.
That's
and are they going to be able to drive all of? Are they going to be able to extract all of the info they need just from my subject line alone? How does this help Google? And it's not limited, by the way. It's not limited just to Gmail.
Well, and also, if let's say that the entire email is encrypted, but they already have a past history of other stuff you've done that has not been encrypted and not been protected. They have behavioral tools they can use. So that's probably what they'll do.
Maybe they're not. Maybe they assume you won't use it.
Because they have that in AdSense now anyway. You can kind of go back and forth. So
yeah,
it's possible.
It's something I'm keeping an eye on. I talked a little bit about on Tech Talk today when it came out, and I like at first is like this because the other thing I don't like about it is inherently Chrome extensions can be auto updated, so they could push out something that maybe broke
or even starts out benign, and then something's a little weird, things like that.
There's other tools out there. There's other extensions. I think it's notable that it's coming from Google, and that it's open source. Those are all things that are interesting and get my attention and get, I think, the community's attention at large. So good on Google, and I'll keep an eye on it, and we'll give it a go. Maybe we'll make it an app pick if it's actually something worth using and talk about it.
Well, and every once in a while they do something really cool, and this hopefully will be one of them.
Yeah, I've talked about it before, too. I felt like, Google and Facebook and Microsoft, they can write letters and say, Zuckerberg can go on stage and be like, oh, I'm so emo about what Obama's doing. But until they actually do something, like put, some code together or make some fundamental architecture changes, then it's just talk. But this is actual, like, what we're going to do? We're going to build an encryption tool. While we're writing those letters, while we're campaigning, while we're publicly denouncing this level of spying, while we're doing all of that stuff, we're also going to create code that will protect you not just with Gmail, but will protect you with all webmail, and we're going to open source it. That to me,
I kind of like that. It hits all the nail. Even if I don't agree with the rest of what Google's doing, it's open source. They're financially supporting it. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and all that. I gotta give them props on that. I'm not gonna give them props on their other things, but this is one thing I think they're doing really well. So
I'm not thrilled that it's tied to Chrome.
Yeah, not quite a fanboy yet, but I appreciate what they're doing.
Maybe down the road we'll see other extensions. There's Firefox, there's Fire GPG. There's a lot of other, there's other stuff out there.
There's other ways to make it easy, but this is cool.
All right, should we purge all that heavy NSA
purge
stuff?
all this stuff.
Let's talk about something cool.
All right.
So, I looking back over history, I remember when we were covering the rumors of Steam coming. God. Oh, Phoronix has a leaked screenshot. Yeah, right.
It'll never happen. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember that, and then I remember it actually like landing, and oh my gosh, we've got our first game on Steam. Well, this week, Matt, Steam crossed 500 Linux games.
Crap.
It was just 304 months ago, so that gives you a little idea of the clip at which we are adding new titles. I think this is pretty substantial. I don't.
Oh yeah, it's very substantial.
Right?
Think about
people. I mean, Linux has. And now, maybe are they all games you'd want to play? Who knows? But at least some of them are actually really great games.
And they're progressively getting better. Like I like the fact that they're maintaining a really great balance between not needing ridiculous hardware, processes and whatnot, but at the same time being engaging games that don't look like they're from 1995. Right. There's a nice happy medium there. They're good stuff. You know? I
was just looking for the. I picked up a game this weekend, and it's pretty. It's like a Marines game. It's pretty intense. I mean, I welcome Debian. He's our. Yes. He is our.
Did you see
Valve
the
overload.
GIF that I sent where the guy was getting like his wallet sucked into the computer?
Yes.
It's like bot. That was awesome. That was that says it all for last month for me.
500 games, and this is before the Steam machines ever release. And you figure once the Steam machines get released, that's going to amp it up. Now those are probably been bumped into 2015. Probably. Not too unexpected there for that to happen.
And it may start off as a thing to where it's going to be just the real Steam purists that are buying them initially. It could very well be a niche thing for quite a while, but that's okay.
And well, we'll see. It depends on how they package them, how they ship them up. While we're just talking about it, I'll just really quickly round up a couple other Steam stories. So the other thing that's kind of a big deal is The Witcher 3 was announced, and when they announced it, they said we're also going to be launching it for Linux, for SteamOS. I'll play a quick little, just a clip of the trailer so you kind of get an idea of what Witcher 3 is about. And this is one of the first AAA titles where when they announced the game and they announced a ship date, they're like, and we will be featuring SteamOS support.
Were many. Now we are few. Hunters, killers of the world's filth. Witchers, the ultimate killing machines.
Now tell me that doesn't look, I mean, it's very, very violent, but tell me, look how amazing that game looks. This is like, I'm just...
Well, honestly, it reminds me of a trip to Walmart. But that aside, I mean, besides all the carnage and shopping cart death.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's
it is a little bit like a trip at Walmart. You're right. Yeah,
it gets pretty radical over, especially in my neck of the woods.
So
it's very cool looking.
That's The Witcher, and then the game. One of the games that I just picked up is a racing game that came out this week too. So there's a lot of good stuff coming to Linux now, Matt. I'm pretty excited about it.
If I can play it, I'm happy.
Yeah. You know? I agree. So anyways, all right. So Steam hits 500 games. Big. To me, seemed like a big milestone. I probably have about half of them, at least, if maybe not more.
Oh man, yeah. I of course, I'm a victim of those damn sales. You know, it's like, oh, it's on sale. It's in the wish list.
And there's a big sale.
Alone.
There's a big summer sale coming up. To answer the chat room's question, I was wondering too: is this new Witcher 3 going to be wrapped in the sort of Eon/wine container that The Witcher 2 was? Don't know yet. I don't think so. I think it's being ported by the shop itself, but I don't. Okay. I'm keeping an eye out. I don't know.
I would say if you don't see a lot of delays, then the odds are it probably is wrapped. If you do see some delays and you do see some stuff to where it takes a little longer than usual, that may actually mean they're really developing.
Or the flip side is they wrote it with SteamOS/Linux support from the beginning.
True. I don't know about it. You never know. I'm suspicious of that, but who knows? Maybe
we'll keep an eye on it.
Game had a talk with him.
I'll probably throw his beard at him.
Right. Wallet machine guns.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm probably going to pick it up. So I'll try it out. I'll let you guys know. I'll report back here. Stay tuned for that.
Nice.
All right, Matt. That's all the news for this week. We're going to talk about Bedrock Linux. It's Linux, but not as you know it. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. It's blowing my mind. And that's why we're going to do a 2-part episode. But first, I got to thank System 76, sponsors of this segment. System 76 are creators of machines born to run Linux. And I've been very lucky. So System 76 provided Chase for How to Linux with a Bonobo. And they also wanted him to try out for a little bit a more portable sort of in-between machine that still has great CPU performance but also offers good battery life and lightweight. Because the Bonobo is like all-in desktop replacement.
Oh, yeah.
You get like 2-3 hours. What were you getting on that thing? Maybe 4 at the best?
If you don't do any tweakage, you probably get about 2.5 on casual usage. You do tweaking, you can bop it up to maybe 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beast of a machine, and that's fine because that's what you get the Bonobo for. So they're like, well, try out the Gazelle Professional, because the Gazelle Professional, check this out, you still get an i7 processor. Nice. This thing's got SSD storage in it. It's got 8 gigabytes of RAM. It's got a gorgeous 1080p screen. Look at that screen. And the keyboard, even look at it, they managed to get a numlock keyboard on here.
That's wild.
It's got a good solid keyboard, and I have to say too, it's totally silent. Like it, you know,
that's important.
Yeah, and they get away with that because they're using Intel graphics, and they combine that with a Core i7. I think this one's 2.8 gigahertz on each core.
Decent.
Yeah, it screams as a Linux box and runs KDE like an absolute champion. So when Chase gets back from Oregon, he'll be trying out the Gazelle Professional. But until then, I've been playing with it over the weekend. Go over to System 76. Just get yourself a machine that's born to run Linux. That way you stop fighting with your hardware and you can have some fun with your Linux because there's lots of fun to be had. They got great desktops too. Laptops, desktops, and servers. System76.com. And thanks, guys, for sponsoring this segment.
You know, if I could add one thing to that, here's something I like to do is I like to go there and I like to go to the configure button and I like to kind of play around with that. Try that and see if you can actually leave that shopping cart without making a purchase.
Yeah,
that's a challenge for you.
I still do that with the Ultra
tough.
Pro. That Ultra Pro is, oh man. And you know, the audience has been writing and said, "Hey, Chris, could you get the darter in? Could you try
that? Would be.
darter?
I've been curious. Yeah, I would like to try the darter. I think that'd be an interesting comparison.
I agree.
For sure.
All right.
Okay.
So let's talk about Bedrock Linux.
Yes.
I mentioned this earlier in the show. I kind of want to recap, wrap your brain around this. It's a Linux distribution created with the aim of making the most out of all of the Linux distributions. Because when you think of like FreeBSD, there's one userland, one kernel. It's all one stack. Yeah. In Linux, you could use the word fragmented, very fragmented userland. Arch has their own userland with their own package management tools. Libraries on Arch might be in a different spot than libraries are in Fedora. Fedora, Mandrake, Debian. You guys are aware of the situation now. Each one has a little bit of differences, and a lot of times that means if you were to just take a binary application and lift it from one Linux distribution, if it's dynamically linking to its libraries and you drop it on another Linux distribution, there's a very good chance it's not going to run at all. Now, if it's statically linked, because then that binary is bringing its libraries along with it, you generally don't have a problem on Linux. But the variations in distributions are just enough that a lot of times there's advantages that one distribution has over another, but also those distributions have their own advantages.
And then you get into symbolic links, and that's when everything just goes to hell.
Yeah, and like if I say, hey, what's a stable Linux distribution? You probably think CentOS or Debian, right?
You would think so.
And when you say, hey, what's a good desktop distribution? You think Ubuntu, Mint, or Mandrake, or something like that, right? And
exactly.
Maybe Fedora's in that list. And then when I say, what's a really on the cutting edge distribution, you might say Gentoo or Arch.
That's right. That's it. You nailed it.
And each has a reason for using that distribution. Arch has a great package management. Gentoo, perhaps you like to build your packages in a specific way sometimes with Gentoo, and Gentoo offers you that. Like, i.e., you want to build Firefox without dbus support. You could always do that with Gentoo. You can just set it once, and it's like that for the default. And Debian, right, it has that great package repository. It's very stable. So if you want to run a server, like an Apache server, Debian's a great choice, or CentOS is a great choice. But when you get locked into any one of these particular distributions, you no longer get the advantages those other distributions offer.
Bingo.
So that's where Bedrock Linux comes along. The goal is to provide one core, minimal, teensy tiny Linux distribution that's all statically linked. And I know that's a bit controversial, but the core of Bedrock Linux is all statically linked, which means it doesn't change very much. It doesn't break very often. It's absolutely minimal. It's like BusyBox and a few other tools. And then through a whole sophisticated series of chroots and bind mounts, which we'll get more into in a minute, you are able to pull down each different Linux distribution's essentially file system, contain it within Bedrock Linux, and then pull the different utilities and tools from those as you need them. So, for example, if you would like a rock-solid stable base of, say, CentOS, yet still have easy access to cutting-edge packages, say, from Arch, or automate compiling packages from Gentoo Portage, and ensure that the software aimed only for the server, for the stuff that's written only for Ubuntu, would all run smoothly, all at the same time, on the same machine, on the same distribution, that's what Bedrock Linux is.
Oh, man. How is everybody not using this? I mean, it's just, that sounds awesome.
I got to say right up front,
awesome.
It's not super user-friendly. What they've been working on with Bedrock Linux is a tight team. They've been working on making this fundamental core technology work.
Okay.
There's not an installer. There's not a global init system.
So this is very hands-on.
This is very hands-on, very hands-on. In fact, I took some notes because there's so many.
So, like, if you can do Arch in your sleep, you're still going to be taking notes. I mean, that's kind of what you're
saying. I mean, I took some. You know what? And the other thing, too, is the way they're doing it's pretty compelling. So instead of me explaining it, I grabbed a couple of clips from the core developer. He was at a Linux conference, and he explained a little bit how they're actually accomplishing these, how all of these things can live together, how they don't all conflict with each other, how you can have apt, yum, and Pac-Man all on the same system.
How's that possible?
How is that possible? So he talks a little bit about how he accomplishes some of this using chroots.
So I figure I should explain how it works instead of just showing things off. It's based around manipulating the file system and path variable. Not sure exactly what level, how familiar all you guys are with the various things I'm using, so I'm going to start with some concepts I figure a lot of you are going to know. chroot is a really neat technique that can change what the file system looks like from the point of view of the program you're running. So in this example here, Firefox is located in var chroot arch user bin Firefox. What I can do is I can take that var chroot arch part and make it so that from Firefox's point of view, that's not there. So if it looks for a file like GTK, the GTK libraries, it's just going to prepend var chroot arch. The system is going to prepend var chroot arch every time it looks for that file. So what ends up happening is it's looking for all its libraries inside of the arch part of the system instead of getting confused with other distros. One thing I want to clear up right now before I continue is a lot of people tend to confuse chroot with a lightweight virtualization, and it is not that for a number of reasons. Most notably, you can break out of chroot if you want to, especially if you're root. Now, if you want to have any kind of sandboxing, this is horrible. It will not protect you. However, if you explicitly want things to break out of the system, like I do with Bedrock, because I want them all to continue interacting with each other, this is really nice. If I try to use virtual machines, I lose that. Moreover, it's not just software that you're interacting with, but your hardware.
And I got one more clip from that video. I know the audio is not great, but I think he shows you how you can manipulate chroots to make each application believe it's running under Fedora or believe it's running under Ubuntu. And he talks in that presentation about how he's able to pull down Xorg from Debian and Compiz from Ubuntu, right?
I love that. And it seems like it's almost, how's this different from like a container-based situation?
Well, I want to ask him that. This is, I believe, my answer to that would be it's not quite as isolated, actually. So applications,
that's
I'm going to play this next. It's like you could have you could share Firefox across multiple installations.
There's your differences. Okay.
And which would not be possible in a container. Now the video, we have the full presentation linked in the show notes. I want to warn you though, it's from like a couple of years ago. Okay. So I only pulled a couple of clips that I believe are still pretty relevant. You can watch the whole one though yourself if you just want to get a broader overview, a broader sense. That is linked in the show notes. Plus, we'll have the developer on Tuesday and ask him some questions. But so we talked about chroots. Now, this is how here's how Bedrock uses bind mounts to sort of accomplish something that I don't think you could necessarily do with containers.
The other main trick I use is bind mounts. For that, I should go over just general mounts. If you have something like a CD or USB drive and you want to access it, put it in the system. On Windows, it'll show up in My Computer. In Linux, you can just put it anywhere, any directory you want. In addition to physical devices like that, it can have virtual directories like /proc. If you rip out the hard drive, put it in a different machine, you'll see there's no actual files there for proc. It's all just a virtual interface to get access to some information from the system. So those most people know about. What I found a lot of people don't know about is bind mounts. You can just take any directory and bind mount it as though it was a CD or USB flash drive. To any other directory. It's like a shortcut or symlink. You're familiar with those. However, this goes through chroots. So what I can do with this is take any directory that I want shared in all those various systems I have in disk and make it so it works transparently. So home is probably the most obvious example. I don't want to worry about, say, I'm using a web browser from one distro and I'm using a PDF reader from another. If I want to download a PDF and then open up a PDF reader, I don't have to worry about moving things around to different chroots. I want it to all work transparently. So if you're sharing my home directory, when I download it, downloads the temporary directory in my home directory, and then the PDF reader can open it from there. Moreover, I can actually, say, run, for example, Firefox from one distro, close it, and then open it in a different distro, and it still sees the same settings because the home directory is shared through bind mounts. By using bind mounts and chroots, I can tweak the system so that any given program sees what it needs to when it needs to be different, but sees what it needs to when it needs to be shared, and everything kind of works transparently.
So we'll get into the security aspect of it on Tuesday a little bit, because that's an interesting approach too. And I wanted to maybe show you a little bit. There's it's there's not a ton to show because I didn't load up a GUI or anything like that, but you could, which is pretty awesome. But here is Bedrock Linux installed right here on this installation. We have an Arch machine, a Debian machine, a Fedora machine, and an Ubuntu machine we can all pick from. And we can use a tool called BRC to dictate which environment we want to be in. So, so I'll do BRC, and then I'm going to say Arch. Okay. And I'll say, then I can do, I could execute a command in Arch, or if I just hit Enter, I would go into a shell. So let's do that. So now I'm in my Arch chroot essentially, and I'll go to root here, and I will do a pacman-syu. and it goes out and it doesn't because I don't have my network set up. But if it did, but for example, now I'll jump out.
But it recognized the command.
Yeah. So now, but here's an example. I don't have to actually even go into the shell. I could just execute a command like brc and then Wheezy. So because that's what the name of the Wheezy installation is. app-get update. Now I'm not root, so this isn't going to work. But I don't see what I'm saying is you don't have to change into the shell.
Oh, I love that.
You can just do brc, and then brc will tell. I can tell it which container, I don't want to call it container, but what installation to run from.
Whether you're going to go yum app.
So you can pull tools from all of them from one central installation.
Man.
Yeah, it's a neat setup.
So if I want to run like Nano, for example, or Pico or whatever, right? Yeah. Where's it pulling it from? Like by default, which?
Using a series of paths, it will first try to pull from an order you set up. So like first, say if you had Arch first, if you had Arch first, it would try there. And if it's not installed in Arch, then using the path variable, it would go down to the next distribution, and it would check there, and it would go down the chain.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's it handles that aspect for you.
This could be fun. I could see this actually being just fun to play with.
So let's look at, here's a little bit of the config. So you go to /bedrock. Now, the different distributions that are installed are called clients. So here are my clients. I have Arch, Heisenberg, Trusty, and Wheezy.
Okay.
And I could look at the config for those particular clients if I wanted to. Here's their file systems. So this is my Arch file system. I'll show you. Here's the Debian file system right there.
This is a nice way to compare too, actually.
Yeah. So you could. So the way it works is, so here's each. So you can see those are each folders that contain all of those distributions. And if I back out of the clients directory here, I'm just in /bedrock on the root. I could go into Etsy, and there's Bedrock config, and here's the client config. And this thing is interesting too. There's frameworks. If I go into frameworks here, frameworks.d. Right now, all this defined is default. And I'll take a look. Here's default. These are global settings that you can apply to all of your clients, aka the different distributions. So here's your bind mount points. Here's the union file system information. So this is a handy way to sort of set some global parameters right there with the frameworks. And you can go in here and you can set up, like, so if we go into clients.d, here's my Arch config. Let's take a look at the Arch config. And it's all it's saying in this one Arch config is just refer to that default.
Right.
And so if you wanted to do something outside of that, you could define it explicitly in here. Otherwise, it's not a bunch of manual configurations for each client. By default, you just have them refer to your default config, which is generally pretty straightforward. So you can add and deploy really quickly. You don't have to go in there and do a bunch of configs.
And that keeps things from becoming a total cluster.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, because that does give you some control. That adds a little bit more of a stable experience based on that.
Yeah. And the one last thing that I was just thinking about as I was using this is, I mentioned, say maybe you liked having Apache and MySQL or whatever,
right?
Nginx, whatever from Debian, because the packages are plentiful. They don't change much. Right. You just want to run that on your server. But maybe for your file sync, you want to use BitTorrent sync from Arch. Well, here's what's really cool is, since you're running on top of Bedrock, when you upgrade these clients like Debian, you can do a full app-get upgrade. And you can upgrade all of the packages and not have to reboot, because you're not actually running Debian. So you could have a production web server or a production database server or whatever it is. You could update it in place and then just restart the service and not have any downtime.
I like that.
And because Bedrock itself is so minimal, I mean, there's ways to update Bedrock, but that's a little bit more of a complicated process. It's a compelling idea, and we're looking at things like CoreOS we covered last week, and now Bedrock. We are seeing a new generation of really looking at Linux in a way that we have never really looked at it before. And sort of like looking at this crazy disparate user land and saying, Linux has all of the facilities it needs to transparently manage all of this. It can all just be mount points on the file system. It can all be chroots. And I don't know, I don't know if I could switch to Bedrock, but I
think maybe eventually.
It's a compelling idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think as it develops, as it matures, because right now, one of the things that frustrates me, and we've experienced this, like just running Arch, for example, is one package can screw you up.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks. I mean, yes, you can get over it, but at the same time, it's like, come on, let's evolve beyond that. And I think that this does provide an interesting approach to a userland.
And they have a list of some of the Bedrock commands. There's a few Bedrock-specific commands, so that way you can manage this environment. Like here's the brc command I was using a little bit ago. brc provides the ability to run commands in clients, properly true-rooting to avoid conflict, so it handles all of the true-root stuff for you. Once Bedrock Linux is properly set up, it'll allow the user to transparently run commands otherwise not available to a given client. For example, if Firefox was installed in the Arch client, but not in a Debian client, and a program from the Debian client tries to execute Firefox, like it calls to Firefox, the Arch Firefox will be executed as though if it were installed locally in Debian. If Firefox is installed in multiple clients, such as Arch and Fedora, and the user would like to specify which one it is to run, rather than allowing Bedrock to choose, one can explicitly use BRC to call, like you could say BRC Fedora Firefox, and you could specifically run Fedora's version of Firefox or Arch's version of Firefox. You
know where that gets really helpful? So let's say, you ever have a screwed up Firefox config?
Sure.
And it's just like, okay, I really don't have time to fix or recreate or whatever.
Right.
But I have this running in my Arch situation. I just run it there. I like the fact you can dictate that. I can definitely see some advantages here over time.
Yeah. So it's, and it's interesting. I noticed too that I believe my Bedrock installation is using an Arch kernel right now. So you,
well,
there's a lot of BRU is the Bedrock update command. There's a lot of cool stuff going on here. I can't wait to talk to the developer. To me,
and how do you like bounce from kernels? Let's say I got an Arch kernel and I borked it, and it's just like, I don't want to deal with the long.
Can you just switch?
Yeah, I don't want the LTS kernel. You know, can I go to the other one? I mean, that'd be kind of cool.
And I wonder if Docker could play a role with Bedrock. Obviously, you could run Docker inside one of the clients, so you could do this and Docker, which is pretty interesting. But I wonder,
would get interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if Docker itself could play a more direct role. It's a fascinating project, and it seems like potentially one that if you're a distro hopper, it could be not yet. I mean, it needs to be installable for the average person, and maybe in a global init system, and maybe system
early
can be used.
Early days.
But eventually, you essentially could have all of Linux distributions in one spot, and no longer have to hop around. You could have your AUR and your Ubuntu Unity and all of that stuff in one system.
Well, and as this matures, would this not be a really great way to learn different distributions without having to...
Totally.
I mean, especially when it comes to like file systems and things like that, there are certain differences.
Totally.
It's like, I got app down sideways, but I don't know squat about Yum, or vice versa. You know, I think there's a lot to be said there.
You could go get started right now. It's usable. So if you go to bedrocklinux.org, check out their introduction. They talk a lot about this. There's also installation instructions available over there. You can peruse through these and see if these look doable to you. It's not too bad.
And like you said, we'll be talking about security stuff on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll bring up the security stuff and talk about updating Bedrock and a few other things. So I'm looking forward to that on Linux Unplugged. And if you have any questions, hopefully we don't get too many people to join us, but we will have the virtual lug open, the Mumble Room. Just join us Tuesday. That's 2 p.m. Pacific. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get that converted to your local time. Show up in the chat room. And then if you do bang Mumble in the chat room, you'll get the server address, and you can join in there and participate in the virtual lug and ask your questions.
Help you get your mic set up and all that good stuff.
All right, Matt, that's the Linux Action Show's first look at Bedrock Linux. It's Linux, but not as you know it. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But Matt, before we get out of here, we got a little thing or two to follow up on. Number one, Texas Linux Fest 2014 JB check-in thread is officially open in the Linux Action Show subreddit. And we'd like you to go over there. I have a link in the show notes. Please check in if you plan to be at Texas Linux Fest coming up soon, because we want to do a meetup. And we'll have some folks there. Q5Sys, producer of Linux Action Show, will be giving away 2 Raspberry Pis. Yeah? Two Raspberry Pis. And he'll also have a talk. Nice. He's gonna have a talk that he'll be doing on Friday called Puppy Linux Deconstructed. It's at 5:15.
Very cool.
So he's gonna give 1 Pi away on Friday and 1 Pi away on Saturday. And go watch his talk too. We can see all the technical wizardry behind Puppy Linux.
Nice. That's going to be fun.
And then we also have a Southeast Linux Fest check-in thread going. So check that out, because that's coming up. That's Self, and we're looking for folks to do a meetup there. Noah's going to be there, and
right on.
Q5 will also be there. So we're getting some good Fest coverage.
That's great.
I think it's time we start giving these fests more exposure, because they've grown. They're good community meetups. Good things happen there. Exactly. And it's silly that these things happen in a vacuum all over the world, and then we never hear about them. We have the freaking internet now. Let's spread the word.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, let's get it done, people. Come on.
So check that out. Those check-in threads for Southeast Linux Fest 2014 and Texas Linux Fest 2014. Both check-in threads are open now. Please go over there and mention if you're going to be there. I'd also like to remind you, if you got to commute, if you're doing something like anything, if you want to be a good person, if you want to listen to something on your computer, if you got an MP3 player and it's just aching for an MP3 file, check out Tech Talk today, Monday through Thursday over at jblive.tv, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar to get that converted to your local time zone. Tech Talk today. And Matt, speaking of content, you got some content too, don't you?
Yes, latest episode of Battle Block Theater Part 3 is
Oh, yeah,
out,
buddy.
and
Oh,
then
yeah.
We'll be probably moving on to some other games after that and then revisiting it later. But we've definitely found that this game is like crack. It's addictive.
Yeah.
We're doing it. Go check it out.
Go check out Geek and the Gamer at youtube.com/geekandthegamer. And last but not least, if video isn't for you, perhaps reading in your faces.
Yes, it is.
And Matt just got a new article up on Datamation called Are Ubuntu Derivatives a Bad Idea? Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, exploring a little bit of the differences, customizations, as well as just actual derivatives themselves. You know, all the goods, the bads, the uglies. You should definitely check it out. There's, you know, there's no true answer for any one person. Saying.
Yeah, and it sparked a good discussion in this week's Linux Unplugged, too, which you can go check out.
That's right.
And last but not least, then we'll get off this obnoxious plugging. How to Linux, Episode 1. It's out. Help us. You know, we really want to make a show to help more people start using Linux, and I think this is it. Help us get behind this with us, and let's start showing people what an awesome alternative Linux is. And let's be real about what that switch process is like, and then let's show them the cool things they can do with Linux. So go check out Episode 1 at How to Linux over at JupiterBroadcasting.com, and while you're there, send us an email. Click that contact link, and why not send us a question about Bedrock Linux that we could toss to the developer if you can't join us live. You go to JupiterBroadcasting.com, click that contact link. And if you want to get a question to the developer, choose Linux Unplugged. If you'd like to give us a comment on this show, choose Linux Action Show, and then fill it out and hit submit, and our highly trained monkeys will deliver it to the appropriate location. And last but not least, linuxactionshow.reddit.com, a place for the community to organize and help form this show, vote on what makes it in, and even make comments on what should or shouldn't, or what you think about what's going to make it in the show. I don't know. There's also feedback threads, so that's a good way to give us feedback too, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Thank you to our chat room for joining us live over jblive.tv on a Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific. We love having you guys here. You help us name the show, and it's always a good conversation. There's a lot more show to watch live, too.
Oh, my God. There's so much you miss.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week. No, I don't use the testing repos. I'm not a maniac. I got work to do. I mean, what do you think? I'm some sort of
crazy town guy?
Maniac? I think he thinks I'm a maniac.
You know, he might be a maniac. It's very possible. He does have an axe back here.
I think, and then, okay, guys, what's your average bill price? What's your, now I know, like, let's see, let me see here. So 400.
This is where the numbers get high for most folks.
See, what's key about the Ting thing here is you got to put in what you use, not what you're paying for. Because Ting's about what you actually use.
Yeah. Your plan is meaningless. It's like how when you look at your bill, how many?
$300? No, not $3,000. 164, 250. Sorry, man, I didn't mean to interrupt. Jesus.
No, that's fine. $3,000. What?
250.
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys.
Dude.
First of all, I didn't arrive to it like I'm going to make a Windows desktop. I was looking at my GNOME 3 desktop when I was debating. Actually, I first installed this as a GNOME machine.
Right.
And I was looking at it and I go, well, you know, on GNOME, I have a bar along the top, which I have to have. And then I have a dock along the left side, which I almost always have to have. Like, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll keep my applications over here so that way the dock's always visible.
That's
so I
how
end up not using that space. I go, gosh, you know, if I'm going to waste the top and the left side of my screen, why don't I condense it all down into one bar, right? And so then I was like, but you know what I really prefer is I really prefer the task switching method of just having things to choose down here in the bar, especially when I have multiple desktops and stuff. I like just having one spot to go to see all my windows. And I was like, so I kind of like to have a taskbar. And then if I'm going to have a taskbar, I should have it where I should have my main launcher icons and my clock. And then I eventually ended up creating, out of whole cloth, the freaking Windows Start menu.